It's the Flex Network. Flex on everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Flex Network. I'm your host, Flex Shane. You can follow me on Twitter at the Flex Network 1. And today I'm joined, of course, by the man, the myth, the legend. All you Seslowmaniacs kept asking for him. We got him back for you people. Alan Seslowsky of Rotowire. You can follow him on Twitter at Alan Seslowsky. Alan, what the hell's going on, brother?
Just this is always my home, Shane. This is the humble beginnings of my start in podcasting, you and also DFS Army. So it always feels like you're coming back to an old neighborhood that you loved and you grew up in. So it's always good to be back. It's just I'm trying to make sense. I mean, these rookie landing spots, and I'm sure we're going to dive into it. And also the draft capital is really screwed up our rookie drafts this year. Like,
oh yeah,
everyone wants to trade back. Nobody wants to trade up. Nobody can decide who's the 1-1 with any confidence. There's a lot of argument. And I still think that there's still a wrench that could be thrown into this whole top 5, top 8 based on what happens today.
Okay, we're definitely going to need to talk about that because when we say we're talking about it today, we're recording on the morning of Saturday, April 30th. We have round 1, round 2, and round 3 in the books. That's AKA day 1 and day 2. And I would say, historically speaking, Al, most fantasy production comes from players drafted in rounds 1, 2, or 3, right? Day 4
for running backs, it's still an open book, because
okay. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that because I agree with you at this point. Okay, so say we're getting right into some strategy. I like that, Al, because we're always talking strategy, right, for your rookie drafts. Okay, so at this point, you look at the wide receivers. There's still a few names out there, but for the most part, 17 wide receivers went off the board in the first 3 rounds, Al. 17, which is insane, right? So at this point, it's pretty slim pickings. I mean, maybe there's some Bo Melton truthers out there, some Calvin Austin truthers out there that are still waiting to see where they fall. But
no, but you're right. For fantasy, it's already written. The book is written for wide receivers. Yeah.
Exactly. But, at the running back position, we only have 6 running backs off the board so far. So with that in mind, there's still guys like Zamir White that we like. Maybe, if you still actually believe in Isaiah Spiller, he's not on the board, which, man, that we talk about a player that had a fall from grace from pre-combine to today. That man is Isaiah Spiller. Kyron Williams is obviously still on the board, but same deal. Like, he just didn't have a good combine. And I would say if you're going to be taking shots later in your rookie drafts and you're going to be drafting one of these players that gets drafted today in the NFL draft rounds 4 to 7, you're going to be wanting to take your shots at running back. Like, I'm still probably going to bank on Zamir White. I don't care where Zamir goes. He's a guy that I'm going to be targeting in my drafts. It's just a matter of where I'm going to target him. Is it going to be round 3 if Zamir goes in round 4 here in the draft? Or if Zamir falls to round 6, maybe we're not so confident. But
it all depends on depth chart. That's all it is. It doesn't at this point, round 4, round 6, round 7 for running back. It's very little difference. Yeah, you'd rather have round 4 than round 5. You'd rather have round 5 than round 6. But for example, whoever the Tennessee Titans draft to back up Derrick Henry, I want that guy.
Yeah, no, that's accurate. That's absolutely accurate. But I mean, I don't think we should bury the lead here, okay? Because it's one of the things that you and I have been talking about since before the draft. You came on this show and we talked about, what if Breece Hall goes to the Jets? You and I were texting, and you were saying, look, can you make a case for Kenny Pickett, the only quarterback drafted in round 1, albeit he went to a pretty darn good landing spot in Pittsburgh.
Great landing spot. Great landing spot, bad prospect, good prospect, bad landing spot. Now what's going to happen, right? That's really the puzzle.
Exactly. So how are you going to parse it out? So, Alan, you are the quarterback stan. There's always a guy in a league that absolutely hoards the quarterbacks in your super flex leagues, and you're that guy. Mr. Alan Seslowsky is that guy. So let me ask you, Al, gun to your head, who are you taking at 101 in your super flex rookie drafts?
Well, again, let's just back up for a second. And why am I the quarterback hoarder? Because everyone that's listening to this podcast does a lot of startup drafts. You've been in a lot of dynasty leagues.
Yeah.
And what happens is the quarterbacks are never cheaper than they are in a startup draft. The minute the draft is closed, the quarterback is the only thing. It's the opposite of a car. When you buy a car, you drive it off the lot, the price goes down. You drive the quarterbacks off the lot, the price goes up. You get Mac Jones in the 5th round of your Superflex league, right? And obviously this only applies to Superflex leagues. The quarterbacks don't carry that kind of weight in a single QB league. You drive Mac Jones off now somebody you could probably get 2 first-round picks to a quarterback-starved team, I mean, or you can get a player that was drafted ahead of him. You can get T. Higgins easily for Mac Jones to a quarterback-starved team. So that's why I'm the quarterback hoarder, quarterback stan, is because they are the only thing that increases value after the draft is over. So that said, now your question, Kenny Pickett, flawed prospect, great landing spot, or the dynamo running back in on the Jets, perceived rough landing spot. I mean, that is the question. My thoughts are.
Can I throw a little wrench in that, Al? Okay, so obviously the dynamo you're talking about is Breece Hall going to the Jets. My question to you is, we're going to make an argument for Kenny Pickett at 101. Can you make an argument for Kenneth Walker going to Seattle, a team we know is going to want to run the ball, over Breece Hall? Just asking a question for a friend.
All right. So as we know that dynasty is played in our 2 to 3 year windows, if we can, it's okay to look at in 4-year windows, but what's the most important year? It's the year ahead of you, especially for running backs. I don't care if they're young running backs, because, running backs, you could expect to have them on your roster and have production for 3 years, right? I mean, I think that's reasonable if they're a high pedigree running back. Kenneth Walker is going to a situation where there's 2 rookie tackles, right? So offensive line is not great. I mean, they did draft 2 offensive linemen. Russell Wilson must be out of his mind right now. Finally, right? So, I mean, Kenneth Walker is a great prospect. There's some concern about his pass catching. That's been plowed over a bunch of times, but I would still take Breece Hall because the Jets have a better offensive line. They're gonna, they have it looks like they focused on offense a little bit more than they have in the past. And Walker, still is going to have to contend with what I call them the Frank Gore types, like Chris Carson, Rashad Penny flashed down the stretch last year. And now Penny hasn't been signed yet. So I think that if somebody took Walker 1-1, okay, they looking a little bit more long-term or see something, but it's not optimal. I still think Breece Hall belongs, even though it's a B+ landing spot, not an A-. It's still probably, as of today, the right play. What do you think?
No, I totally agree with you. And really what it comes down to is, you look at your pre-draft rankings and just your evaluations. And we love Kenneth Walker. I mean, Brandon on the show, Brandon's got a type, right? Like Brandon's like the J.K. Dobbins kind of truther, right? Where it's these very strong, these very elite running backs, which, hey, guess what? That kind of makes sense, right? But obviously we know in fantasy football, most of us, unless you're living under a rock or living in a cave from, centuries ago, we're playing in either half-point PPR or full-point PPR, right? And that makes a huge difference at the running back position to score fantasy points. It's just, you look at a Nick Chubb, right? We just know that Nick Chubb, his ceiling is capped every single year. And you're going to be disappointed if you're drafting a player like that in round 1 of your just season-long leagues every single year, because they don't have that pass-catching upside. There's obviously going to be an exception with Derrick Henry. King Henry is who he is, but for the most part,
Nick Chubb is kind of like an exception, right? Like, but you have to be Nick Chubb or Derrick Henry in order to get that value, right?
Yeah,
you're not that. Yeah,
I would say Kenneth Walker is up there in terms of the prospect level. Like, I would say that. So, all being said, though, I'm still taking Breece Hall. I'm still taking Breece Hall 101. But what do you think? You're on the clock. You've got the 101. You're in a Superflex league. You're in one draft, okay? Because I know, Alan, you're in like 30, literally 30. So you can probably diversify if you have a few of those 101s. But you've got one league, or it's your most important league. It's the one with all your friends and family. If you mess this pick up, you're going to get ridiculed. You're going to get heckled. Who are you going to pick?
Well, I'm going to take for right now, if it's today, it's Breece Hall. It seems like more of a sure thing now. But if I was, let's say, for example, I was good at, this is one of those things where you always take best player available. But let's give a hypothetical here. Let's say I was pretty good at running back. Let's say there is a league where I actually have Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook. I do have like a couple young guys that I like in there, like, I'm trying to look at my like a Dobbins, Montgomery. Like, let's say I'm 4 deep. Yeah. Just say I'm 4 deep, right? And Breece Hall's there. But let's say my quarterback 2 with someone like Tannehill, who's on the ropes.
Mhm.
I don't think it's I don't think it's unreasonable to take Kenny Pickett there, because you do. It's so hard that we just talked about to acquire these quarterbacks. It's almost impossible. I mean, right now, try to go if you're a quarterback needy team, try to go get Matt Ryan, see what it costs you. Right. So this is the opportunity. And again, you may not even need to take him at 1-1. Now, again, trade back. I think that's a cop-out thing to say. It's almost like, hey, this guy's better in best ball. No shit. Right. He's always better in best ball because you only get the best games. But Kenny Pickett probably will settle in around 1-4, 1-5 in early drafts is my suspicion. But I think it's okay to take him at 1-1 if you're a quarterback needy team. But that would also entail that you're rock solid at running back.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, in rookie drafts, we always preach draft based on talent. Don't draft based on need. The thing about the quarterback position, though, is that Kenny Pickett is what he is, but he is likely going to be a starter sooner rather than later, right? We think that he's probably going to win out that starting position. I think he's going to win out the starting position, if not from week 1, probably by midway through the season, right? And he's going to have value for the next at least probably 4, 5, 6 years, right? Like in theory, he could take a Sam Darnold type approach to his career, or even a Baker Mayfield, where after a few years, the team says, look, this just isn't the answer, in which case you got to move on from him. But you could draft based on need. You could draft based on best player available. It's not a wrong pick at 101. It's defensible. But if I'm on the clock, I'm still taking Brees. The question so quickly in my head, Al, I kind of have easily for me, it's going to be Brees. It's going to be Kenneth Walker at 1-2. And then at that point is where I'm starting to decide on, do I want to take Kenny Pickett or do I want to pivot to the wide receiver position, knowing that it is quite deep. And you look at the quarterbacks for all the top end wide receivers that were drafted, and nobody really stands out, right? And that's what's kind of interesting is that, I mean, really, the top guy is probably Treylon Burks going to the Tennessee Titans with Ryan Tannehill, right? Like you look at Drake London. I mean, is Marcus Mariota the answer? I mean, I know that they drafted, what was it, Corral?
Desmond Ridder.
Desmond Ridder. Oh,
as QB2, by the way.
Yeah, no, exactly. In round 3, but still as QB2. You've got Garrett Wilson going to the Jets. You've got Chris Olave going to the Saints. Now, I like Chris Olave to the Saints. We'll talk about that in a second. Jamison Williams going to the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff, he's a short-term quarterback solution. Detroit's probably going to want to take.
By the way, Jared Goff took a team to a Super Bowl, man. He's capable of getting his players the ball.
I know, and now he's got Amon-Ra, who's clearly a trusted wide receiver. And you know what's interesting? Like I was listening to your show yesterday, the Rotowire podcast show. If you guys don't currently subscribe to it, you need to go and subscribe to it. Al, you do a Dynasty show every single week. Mario Puig and the team over there, they always typically come up with John McKegney, I think, always come up with a show once a week. So it's at least typically 2 shows a week. Yep. But you were on with Mario yesterday, and I think he had a really good take on just the Lions' position for Amon-Ra St. Brown. The idea being that, you know, when you're drafting a wide receiver early, you plan to essentially build around them as a cornerstone wide receiver. So obviously Amon-Ra last year was drafted around 4, but they hit gold, right? So they're not going to treat Amon-Ra St. Brown as a ground 4 wide receiver because he produced, because he did so well. They're going to treat him as a round 1 wide receiver. Now they essentially have 2 round 1 wide receivers. Jamison Williams, discussions are generally that he's going to start off on the PUP list, which means he's going to miss the first part of the year.
You're not going to see him before Thanksgiving. You're just not.
No. So I guess my question to you, Al, is as this is just Shane Seeley trying to figure out his post-draft rankings, because at this point it's hard to get this out, because I had initially Garrett Wilson as my 1, but obviously we love Elijah Moore at the Jets, right? So is he going to be your wide receiver 1? There's going to be that target competition. Drake London has essentially no target competition. But does he really have
Kyle Pitts is there, and Kyle Pitts is probably has earned 8 to 12 targets a game, right? Let's call it 9.5 targets a game. Kyle Pitts.
Okay, but so how many times? I mean, on average, the quarterbacks are throwing probably 29, 30 times in a game, and that's low. Like you just look at historically, last couple of seasons, right? 29, 30 times. So if Pitts is going to get 8 or 9, Drake London's probably going to get 8 or 9, because in college, Drake London was a freaking target hog, and then you get a balance of 10 for like the miscellaneous.
All right. Well, Cordell Patterson is going to get 6 or 8 targets a game.
Yeah. So there you go. And then there's a few other wide receivers. So I think you're going to get peppered. But who do you have as your wide receiver 1 at this point, Al? I'm kind of rambling here.
Yeah, no. I'm enjoying what you're saying here. I think that, like I said, it's not like who do I have as my first wide receiver. There is an absolute tier of wide receivers. I think that I know you always hear tiers over rankings, right? It's smart football ranking. That's the way to do it. But this year more than ever. Okay, so let's talk about tiers first, and then we'll sort it out. Right. So tier 1, I think there's a clear group of 3 receivers that you could take with the first wide receiver off the board, and it's defensible. Okay. Treylon Burks, because of the opportunity, right? And he at one point was the wide receiver 1. There's going to be warts on all of these guys. Drake London, and you identified Chris Olave, right? We both like him a lot, especially. I do like the landing spot. So you can argue which one of those guys is the highest in that tier, lowest, but I think that's a clear tier 1. And then you have to decide, then you have to look at like, okay, what can I reasonably expect them to do in year 1? What can I reasonably expect them to do in year 2? So that would be, let's look at the quarterbacks, right? So all 3 of them are likely not to have the same quarterback this year as next year, right? So we have Jameis Winston right now. There's no guarantees that Winston will be the quarterback next year. Could be. He's probably the most likely. Mariota, I mean, he would have to play as well as Ryan Tannehill did when he went from Miami to Tennessee in order to keep that job. Desmond Ridder sitting there. So it could be Ridder. And then the third one is, so we have those 3 guys, and then Tannehill, who now has Malik Willis behind him. So that flattens that a little bit out. So now you're like, there's QB question marks on all 3 of them, right? So now it's coaching, scheme fit. Man, there's those 3 guys would be the 3 that I would certainly consider as it 1, 2, or 3, and I wouldn't be able to make a good argument. So now I'm going to defer to draft capital. So that leads me back to London. All right. So I'm going to go London number 1 based on draft capital, but just know there's a lot of uncertainty in all of this. I mean, you were early to identify Skye Moore. He arguably landed in the best landing spot. He's got some target competition with Juju Smith-Schuster. Christian Watson has got the high upside. I wouldn't be surprised if Christian Watson, who landed in Green Bay, flames out completely or ends up being the best wide receiver in this class. I wouldn't take those guys ahead of our tier 1, but if somebody did it, I don't have any good reason to tell them they're wrong.
Yeah, no, I see that. I mean, the problem is that you have to defer to talent, right? Like, the thing about Christian Watson is his depth chart is wide open. Where Skye Moore, there still is Juju Smith-Schuster, there still is Travis Kelce, so there's some target competition in Kansas City, but I couldn't have dreamt of a better spot for Skye Moore. Excuse me.
Yeah, that is the nuts landing spot right there. I mean, that is the spot because it's with I'm almost talking over because you're taking a drink there.
No, go ahead.
Because
please,
the thing, yes, it's an elite quarterback, but it's an elite quarterback that's going to be there. Like we talk about dynasty in 2 to 3 year windows, except for the 3 or 4 elite quarterbacks. Those guys are okay to talk about in 4 to 5 year windows. Now there's 4 elite quarterbacks in a sense of not of just pure talent, because I'm including Joe Burrow there, but guys that we can reasonably project for a 4 year window. All 4 of those guys, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Herbert, and Burrow, are guaranteed to be there, barring injury, 4 years. We can't even say that about Kyler and Lamar at this point. I don't even think we can say it about Dak Prescott. Those guys maybe 2 to 3 years. So the wide receivers that land with that quarterback stability, and with quarterback stability comes coaching stability. So that's why I think that you could reasonably, again, I'd have to think this through a little bit, put the Skye Moores in that tier. Now he's got the draft capital problem, and it's not really a problem because
round 2.
Round 2, they could have easily taken him in round 1.
I think so. Clipboard Jesus is asking us about where we think Malik Willis is going to fall. We're going to get to that. Short answer is probably back half of the first round for me is where I'm going to be looking at Malik. But so I would almost consider, okay, so we got your tier 1 wide receivers, Drake London, Chris Olave, Treylon Burks. I think I would agree with that. I would still consider Garrett Wilson and Jamison Williams in that tier simply because of the talent, right?
Jamison Williams for sure. For sure.
Yeah, but you talk if you're drafting Jamison Williams, just like the Detroit Lions, I mean, you're doing it not for necessarily for this year, but you're going to do it for future years, right? Jamison Williams, he's still young. He's
21.
Still only 21 years old. That's right. And he's got the draft capital, 12th pick in the draft. Like that's pretty legit.
Shane, keep talking. I just have to. There's a noise right here. I just want to close this door. Okay. So
no,
keep
absolutely.
going.
So obviously, you're looking at your tiers. I would add in probably Garrett Wilson and Jamison Williams, just because, like I said, about the draft capital, they've got the talent. We love them for that. Look, most elite NFL teams right now are going to have at least 2 of those high-end wide receivers. So the fact that Garrett Wilson went to the Jets, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. Let's just assume that Zach Wilson is going to continue to improve, because most quarterbacks in year 2 are going to continue to improve. So because of that, Garrett Wilson, I would still classify it, if not your tier 1A, right? And then in tier 2, I have your Christian Watson, your Skye Moore. Would you throw Jahan Dotson in that tier 2 or even tier 3, Al, like that next tier down?
I'm taking the quarterbacks ahead of him, and I like Jahan Dotson. What's not to like, and I could end up looking very silly with this call, but the Redskins. Oh, sorry, I can't believe I said the Redskins. The Commanders. That's a very that's a rough landing spot. One, because you do have a professional wide receiver in Terry McLaurin there, right? You have Curtis Samuel couldn't fire there. I'm not going to really hold that against him. You have Antonio Gibson, right, who does command some targets. J.D. McKissick commands targets. Carson Wentz, you can't feel great about that. There's no guarantee. And if he's not there, then who is it? Are they doing the quarterback shuffle again next year? Again, Jahan Dotson should be a first-round pick. Any first-round wide receiver. Like Brandon Ayuk, remember that? Yeah. He fell out of the first round. That was not probably a smart pick. Not Michael Pittman, but anyone, Jalen Reagor, it could end up being Jalen Reagor. That's a bad example of like when you have a first-round pick. But for the most part, if a first-round wide receiver is pretty insulated, and especially one that we like talent-wise, we don't want to overrate situation like we did with A.J. Brown. So I'm taking Dotson in the first round, but I'll probably in a super flex leagues right now, as of today, take Willis, take Ritter over him. So we're looking at like the 1.12 for Dotson, I believe.
Yeah, and he would probably be early round 2 if the running back class was a little bit deeper. We had a Laramie Tunsil fan page just shouting out that Brandon Cooks is the best receiver in the AFC South. I don't know. Michael Pittman's still pretty darn good as far as I'm concerned.
I'm not going to argue against Brandon Cooks, man. All that guy does is go to 9 teams and put up 1,000 yards. So it's
true.
Hard.
A player I know actually went out and traded for in a bunch of my leagues this offseason was actually Brandon Cooks. Davis Mills has improved, and guess what? So far, Houston has not drafted a quarterback. So
they're going to give me Michael Pittman set up, but Brandon Cooks is a Hall of Fame fantasy wide receiver. I'm not saying the real Hall of Fame. I'm saying in fantasy football, you drafted that guy your rookie year, you were never disappointed.
No, exactly. I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay. Jahan Dotson, back of the round. Now we're starting to get into some questionable wide receivers, okay? So one of the ones that I was scratching my head at is the New York Giants taken at pick 211, Wandel Robinson.
You love Wandel, though. You were talking about him as an early sleeper. I would thought you would be so happy about this.
Man,
the team saw what you saw.
I like Wandel Robinson. His production numbers are, I'm going to throw that E word out there. His production numbers are elite, okay? The one thing I have, okay, let me just, all right, let's take a step back.
Put this in context for a sec. You told me on my podcast.
Yes, I know.
That I said, give me a sleeper that nobody's talking about yet. This is a month and a half ago. That is a wide receiver that could end up blowing up. And Wandel Robinson out of Kentucky, you correctly identified him. You said, this is someone that people are thinking in the 3rd or 4th round. Goes in the round 3 to a good team that needs wide receivers. With a good coach, a coach that had Cole Beasley is a nice slot receiver, have top 15, top 18 production, and now you're going to back off this position? How dare you? Stick with it, man.
I think it's fair. Okay, you're right. You're right. Here's the reason I've cooled on Wandale. It's just it comes down to his size. I'm a little bit worried about his overall size.
But his size was the same when you made the call.
I know.
He didn't grow or shrink.
I know, but sometimes your takes are allowed to change and evolve. It's all relative to what, right? The whole Kadarius Toney drama, man, this guy's such an idiot knucklehead. Like,
they didn't draft him. They didn't draft him.
I get it, but he's still a round 1 wide receiver, and he's still got talent. So I question that pick a little bit, more so maybe for the fit, Al. is where I'm at. But I mean, so Wandel Robinson, the wide receiver out of Kentucky, he had an elite year. This is the reason we were on to him, right? He had 104 receptions. He had 1334 receiving yards, a 39.3% target share. That's a 99th percentile target share, 72% catch rate, which we love, and 7 receiving touchdowns. So I get it. To me, it's like,
all right, listen to my theory about draft capital here. If a player gets drafted in year X, and then a new coaching staff comes in and a new GM comes in year X plus 1, my algorithm discounts that draft capital by a half. So he's no longer Kadarius Toney is not viewed as a first round wide receiver to this coaching staff. He's viewed as a fringe first rounder, second rounder. So a 1.5 rounder draft capital. That if you round that up, that's round 2, and that's where they took Wandel Robinson. The Wandel Robinson, it's more important in all likelihood for this coaching staff to make Wandel Robinson work than it is to make Kadarius Toney work. And then I'm vindicated by Monday morning quarterbacking here because they've already said, hey, who wants this guy? Come get him. So now not only do we know that they don't like Kadarius Toney, they were willing to trade him, not for pennies on the dollar. They want decently fair value. And then they take a player they like in a round that has meaning. I would rank Wandel Robinson, flaws and all, ahead of Kadarius Toney unless Toney gets traded. If Toney gets traded, we got to respect the round 1 draft capital again.
I guess I think where my head's at, like so my instant reaction was, what are you guys doing? And I think, Al, it's not necessarily because, again, I like Wandel Robinson. I would have had him closer to like around 3 value, round 3 in real NFL drafts. So that's why I think they drafted him a little bit early at 211. It's also about who else was on the board. Okay, George Pickens was on the board. He ended up going to Pittsburgh. Skye Moore was on the board. We liked him. He ended up going to the Kansas City Chiefs. I would have even considered maybe like an Alec Pierce or John Mechie who went after him. So it's not necessarily about Wandel. I hate Wandel. It's just who else could they have drafted at that spot? And I get it. It's about fit for the team. So take that for what it is. But to me, I was kind of like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah,
but
no, it was a reach based on, ADP. But listen, in the round 2, just go. He went in round 2, right? Wandel, or is it round 3?
Wandell's 211. No, Wandell's 211. Right. That's what I'm saying. He should have been a round 3 wide receiver, but he's around 2. So
you got to, and I hear what you're saying. It's jumping ADP, but you got to go get your guy. Listen, George Pickens, everyone loves him. But everyone, it's sometimes maybe he's going to work out, maybe he's not. Obviously, I'll defer to Pittsburgh when they're drafting wide receivers. Yeah. That automatically, they have such a long history of hitting in the second round that I'm going to respect and appeal to authority. Not in many situations, but in this specific situation, the round 2, the round 3 wide receiver. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, right? I mean, that was it. Antonio Brown was a late pick. He was like a 5th rounder. I mean, they have such a rich. Who was it called? Mike Wallace was a late rounder or a 2nd rounder. It just goes on and on and on. I mean, even Claypool, for all his flaws and he's seen a decrease in value. I mean, he had 10 touchdowns year 1. So it's By the way, Claypool gets nuclear, right? I mean,
he gets eviscerated.
Yeah.
Here's the ironic thing. I'm sure you were watching draft. I was driving in my car, so I was listening to the draft in Sirius. It was Chase Claypool that announced the pick.
Oh,
there's a certain level of irony to that,
dude. Right? I said it in some chat I was in. I go, wow, they're making the guy announce his own replacement. Talk about getting cucked. All right.
That's so hilarious.
They're making the guy watch his girlfriend get banged, basically.
Oh my God.
It's terrible.
Okay,
it's terrible.
So George Pickens, I think that, he fell for 2 reasons. Okay. He got injured, so he missed pretty much all of last season. He did come back in the national championship game where Georgia won the national championship against Alabama. There were some character concerns, and I think that's the main reason why he fell. I heard some things. I don't want to repeat them on the air and be on record for it because I don't know if they're true or not.
Well, then just say allegedly, because now you have me curious. I'm sure everyone else.
Okay, so allegedly,
this is George Pickens.
This is George Pickens. Allegedly, he apparently was a bully. Like, he would bully other kids, and apparently he bullied an autistic kid so much that it made this person cry and almost commit suicide. So, like, a pretty bad thing. Now, this is alleged. I can't comment.
Yeah.
Says I have no sources, right? These are just things that we've heard, and we talked to a lot of different
Yeah.
people. So
just to play armchair psychologist, let's assume
Sure.
that that's even the case. For example,
Yeah.
often, again, and this is from my medical degree from Harvard. I'm speaking, as you all know, I'm a Harvard professor, which basically I'm trying to tell you that I know nothing. But we're talking about George Pickens. Somebody just asked in the chat about it. Yeah. So let's say he was this terrible bully person, right? I don't want to ever. You always got to think what's going on, what happened in someone's life that they are treating someone else like that. And then you got to say is, hey, could this person come around? I would never want to be judged by my worst moments, right? I mean, if there are consistent worst moments throughout your life, yes, there's always opportunity to change. But now you have to think the organization that he went to, right? Pittsburgh, they've taken on. I mean, Antonio Brown was well behaved. I'm putting air quotes up for so long in that system because they have the structure, they have the discipline. Mike Tomlin is a player's coach. He's also a CEO coach. So if there is a character issue with him, I don't want to judge him by his worst day. And I also think that if he's going to be in an environment that's setting up for success, this is it. So I'm willing to not count that when I'm ranking him for fantasy football, but understanding, like you said, there's risk. I mean, Josh Allen had some character flaws coming out. We talked about wasn't it Laramie Tunsil that had the gas mask on? Was that him?
Yeah, it was Laramie Tunsil. Yeah, I mean, he smoked a little weed. Who cares?
But I mean, now we say that, but before it was like, So
no, I'm pretty sure I said it at the time. Who cares? The NFL is archaic and they're slow with that, but they're starting to evolve. Yeah, I mean, if I could play for one coach, say I was actually talented enough to be in the NFL, and I got to choose which coach I got to play for, it would be one man. It would be Mike Tomlin. He is, in my opinion, the best coach in the NFL in terms of like a player coach, a person's coach. And, think about this. He was dealing with the personalities of Antonio Brown, of Le'Veon Bell, and he was able to essentially put it under wraps. And the Steelers are so smart. There's a reason they parted with those talents, right? When it got to the point where he couldn't control the personalities, they shipped them off. They didn't want to have anything else to do with them.
It's had nothing to do. Sorry, I don't want to say it had nothing to do, but it didn't have to do with the talent. Sorry. I blew my point. It didn't have to do with they can control them. With talent comes tolerance, right?
Yes.
And when the talent and the risks outweighed the rewards, then that's when that scale balance the other way. That's when they moved on from these guys. There was a time where Antonio Brown was the top 2 wide receiver for a half a decade. And then what happened was we saw that the negative effect he was having on a team outweighed the positive. And we saw that most highlighted when he quit on the team, which, by the way, I love that's one of my favorite football moments of all time, when he runs out with his shirt up. But Tampa, but yeah, Mike Tomlin was right. He quit on 2 different teams. He quit on the Bucks, and he quit on the Raiders essentially by saying that he said that his helmet wasn't the right helmet. He wouldn't play that. That was BS. He just wanted to get out of there. And again, that's fine, but that's when his talent did not exceed the downside.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And we're totally taking a tangent here, but for those of you who are dabbling in the sweet art of best ball, Antonio Brown, he's still teamless, but he's a guy that I'm drafting pretty consistently where I can in rounds 19 and rounds 20. Of my best ball drafts, just because he's going to land somewhere, and he's still probably better than, I don't know, a good 50% of the league, right? So he's good enough to be a starter.
Here's a little Antonio Brown thing. Also, he needs surgery, and he's it's not like surgery to be in life. I forget exactly where it is, but he said he'll only get the surgery if a team signs him. So he's like, I'm not going to have unnecessary surgery. So even if a team signs him, he's going to have surgery, just so you know. So keep that in mind.
That's interesting. What kind of surgery though?
I don't know exactly what it is. I want to guess not knee, like something with his ankle or foot or just something like that. And it's minor, but he goes, I don't need it for regular life. I only need it for football. So if someone signs me, I'll get the surgery. So for best ball purposes, just be careful that if he does get signed late, that he might miss the first month of the season anyway. And for best ball, that's just, I do like the upside play, but I would just diversify a little bit, not grab him in every draft.
No, I think I've done 16 drafts so far. I think I have him in 4 or 5. So
perfect ratio.
But a third, right?
Perfect
exactly. My guess is probably the ankle, right? Because it was the ankle that was bothering him last year, and that was allegedly the whole reason that he had a blow up, where he couldn't play in the game. He told Coach Arians he couldn't play. Coach said, "You're either playing or you're gone," and that's what the whole freak out was allegedly.
So, by the way, I'm just, this morning I was integrating the rookies into the Rotowire Superflex Dynasty rankings.
Okay.
And do you want to take a guess where I put Hall and Walker? Because we were talking about them earlier. So, RB what?
I'm gonna guess.
And again, you're not
Hall.
guessing. You're not saying what you would do. You want to guess what
Mhm.
I am doing. What I
I'm
did
gonna
in the
say
Super.
you're probably putting Hall right around RB 7 or 8.
Okay.
And
then
then Walker probably around 10, 12.
Okay. So you're close on one, off on the other. And
Okay.
so I have Hall at 3.
3. Wow. Okay,
Yep.
I like
okay,
that.
so hear me out here. So I got Taylor and Swift 1 and 2, right? We all agree there. Okay. Now
You have Swift as 2. That is Alan Seslowsky. That's just music to my ears, baby. I love it.
Oh yeah. I mean,
you
it's
and I are like the Swift stands, man. I love it.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
No, I mean,
keep going.
pass catching running back. Lions didn't take a running back in the first few days. Okay, now you have let's take Hall out of it. I put Hall there, but now you have Najee Harris, 24 years old, Breece Hall, 20.
Yep.
Okay. So that's determining. Obviously for redraft, I would take Najee Harris this year. I actually have Najee Harris as my RB2 for the redraft ranks. Okay. So now you have the Christian McCaffrey dilemma. And then you have Javonte Williams, who's now has to deal with Melvin Gordon again. So the next time that Javonte Williams is going to have a shot to have the running back the running back field to himself will be age 24. So that's why. I mean, it's if someone told me, hey, I have Najee ahead of him, I would say, okay, I'm playing the age game here. Najee's a 3-year running back. Hall's a 5-year running back. And again, we talk about 2 to 3 year windows. Then you have the running backs that are aged that are probably going to go ahead of Hall. So you have Mixon, Eckler, Dalvin Cook. So again, just based on age alone and projected role, I have Hall at 3. Now, if somebody wants to tell me they have him at 6, no problem. But in a startup draft, that's where I would take him. Now, a Walker I have at 12, by the way, 12.
Walker 12. Okay, yeah. So you probably you got that that grouping of the older, likely still productive for 1 to 2 years, like the Austin Ecklers of the world ahead of him. I'm guessing.
Yeah, that whole group is ahead of him with Walker. And again, it's the pass catching or lacked perceived pass catching plus a little bit of crowded space is what pushes him down. But I have Walker, I'd probably take a shot on Walker above Etienne, above Antonio Gibson at this point, certainly above Elijah Mitchell. And, you get J.K. Dobbins, Montgomery. Montgomery is probably always a little underrated, but yeah. So, I mean, that's where Walker's going to fit. And I think that's more in line with what the market's going to view him as.
Yeah, I really want to dive into some of these rookie running backs because there were a few players that we need to discuss. We talked about Antonio Gibson. Brian Robinson's going to hurt his value for sure. But I just want to put a bow quickly on these wide receivers, okay? And in particular, this is a selfish question that I want to ask you. Okay, so in round 1, the video going around was Sean McVay and the Rams reacting live to the New England Patriots pick of Cole Strange, excuse me.
Right.
I literally had to look up who this guy was. He wasn't on my radar at all.
Isn't it funny that it's a strange pick and that's the guy's name?
Oh, I know. It's fun. Silly thing. One of my buddies, he had a faster feed than what I was watching on Thursday night, and he messaged. He's like, Cole Strange, like, what do you think, Shane? And I thought it was like Cole question mark.
Right.
Like I did like Cole. Yeah. So I didn't even know who this guy was. But the one thing I will say about Bill Belichick, we'll talk about his wide receiver pick in round 2 real quick here. But the man knows how to draft linemen, offensive linemen, defensive linemen. So
yeah, nobody's arguing that Cole Strange is a good player. They're
arguing, I guess, where he took him. Absolutely, I get it. But so if anybody's going to get the best out of him, it's going. I'll just throw me a bone. I'm trying to go glass half full kind of guy here, right? Yeah. All right. So maybe he'll get it out of him. Okay. At round 2, pick 218, ahead of George Pickens, ahead of Skye Moore, ahead of Alec Pierce, ahead of Jalen Tolbert, they went with Taekwon Thornton out of Baylor. I get it. He was the fastest wide receiver in the draft. The problem is, Al,
he's a return man, right? He's like more of a special teams player, like how they drafted. Yeah,
no, exactly. He's going to be a special teams player. And the problem that I have is just the fact that, I mean, he only had 45 yards in special team yards last year in college. He had 62 receptions, 948 yards, 28% target share, which is good, right? That's a good target share. I don't even know who the quarterback was for Baylor. But he only had a 57% catch rate, and that's low. So he has a low catch rate. He did have 10 touchdowns. Speed, I get it. Speed in the NFL is so important. It's going to open up the field, even if like he's not. Taekwon Thornton, like you're probably maybe considering him round 3 of your rookie drafts, right?
Not me. I'm
maybe,
taking
maybe.
I'll take a round 4, round 5 running back ahead of Thornton.
Okay, I'm the same way, right? I'm grasping the straws here. Like when I was doing my pre-draft rankings and then plugging in, okay, where these actual draft picks went, I just scroll way down.
Okay, so just think about this. Where did Tutu Atwell go last year in rookie drafts? Round 5, right? Or he was undrafted in 4 rounds. That's where
small. Tutu was small though.
It whatever his warts were, apply whatever the warts are to this player. This player is not good. He's going to go. You're not drafting him in 4-round rookie drafts. I mean, I'm not. Right? When I say you, I mean the proverbial you. And if it's a 5-round rookie draft, sure, why not? I mean, but I want no part of him. I'd rather have, like I said, unsigned or undrafted free agent running backs that we like. That let's say Kevin Harris goes undrafted but ends up in Titans, with Tennessee Titans. I'd rather have him than have Thornton because these guys, first of all, they're always low probabilities to hit under good situations. Now you're talking about an overdrafted on a team that has, frankly, one of the worst records on drafting early round wide receivers in the last half decade.
Yep.
So I don't want any part of that. I just want a guy that can, at that point of the draft, that if a Khalil Herbert example, where I know I have 2 weeks of projected volume, maybe over some guy that I'm never going to start. I just don't even want him on my roster, and if he breaks out, if I miss on that, if Bill Belichick finally landed on didn't roll snake eyes on a Aaron Dobson, I mean, N'Keal Harry, the list goes on and on and on, then I'll be okay missing it.
You're so mean to me, Al. It hurts. It hurts. But you're absolutely right, man.
We're trying to give advice, right?
You're absolutely right, and that's why I was just very upset. Right after Taekwon Thornton went George Pickens to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think again that's a good fit. James Washington's gone, so they needed that 3. I mean, maybe he's better than Chase Claypool. Time will tell. After that, Alec Pierce to the Indianapolis Colts. Now this one's interesting. Because Alec Pierce is a bit of he's an athletic specimen. Played for Cincinnati with Desmond Ridder. He had pretty good connection with Desmond. We know Indy seems to be they keep taking a bite at the apple, right? For these wide receivers. Paris Campbell, a player that you and I would say we're officially truthers on, Al.
I still like him,
but he's been hurt. Every single year he's been hurt.
Just hurt.
Michael Pittman's good. So Alec Pierce does have a legit chance to come in and be fantasy relevant. Matt Ryan's a good quarterback. He's going to get him the ball. Skye Moore, we talked about Kansas City Chiefs. Skye Moore, where are you drafting Skye? Like it's pretty much. It's basically my pre-draft rankings. I'm taking Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jamison Williams, Treylon Burks before him, and then again it's a conversation: Christian Watson or Skye Moore. I'll probably
take
Skye.
Moore ahead of Watson.
I'm taking Skye above Christian. Absolutely,
and you just nailed it. Those 5 or 6 guys, and then Skye Moore. I think, like I said, and then you said the real. Where the rubber meets the road is going to be the draft capital. So you're going to have to weigh Dotson ahead of those guys. I mean, I'm not going to do it, but that's the conversation.
Yeah, I'm probably going to go Skye, then Christian Watson, then probably Dotson, and then we're talking about John Mechie, who going to Houston Texans, man. That team's wide open. I like John Mechie. He's kind of meh. A player that I was quite high on, and I was
very good. Did you mean to do that? He's kind of meh-chi.
Oh, no, that just kind of happened. Okay. Sometimes it just comes to me, Al.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just comes to me.
It's kind of meh-chi.
Yeah. So in our text with Brandon and Matt and Mike, I was talking about how like the slack on the noose is really starting to dry up for David Bell, and then finally he went in the 3rd round, which is still okay draft capital for David Bell considering how slow he was.
It's perfect. This is exactly what you wanted.
Yeah, man. And look, we kind of like. I think you were higher on Donovan Peoples-Jones than I was, but I think that David Bell is going to go in as that 2 now.
Yeah, they're different players. I mean, they have Amari Cooper, who does it all, who's a true alpha wide receiver. Then you have DPJ, who is a field stretcher. I mean, he takes the top off. He's the long guy. He's the clear out guy. He has a role. He's probably going to get 3 or 4 targets a game, DPJ, and he's better in best ball. But he really is. I mean, he's never going to be someone that you're comfortable starting unless there's injuries. But I think I have him. Shane, I did 43 best balls so far this season. I have him in every single. Basically, if you're in a best ball with me, you don't have Donovan Peoples-Jones, because that's the exact guy that you get in the 17th, 18th round. He's going to have 2 or 3 scoreable weeks for you. David Bell fits right in there as the Jarvis Landry replacement, right? I mean, the guy who is not overly athletic, that's just good at football, that knows how to get open, knows how to use his hands to push defenders out of the way, won't get pressed up. I love the third round's perfect, man. Third round's perfect. Who really gets hit bad here is Anthony Schwartz. I think that's the receiver that probably is going to have to wait another year. He's super young, so it doesn't matter. But I think that's the guy that's going to be not relevant in any of your leagues.
Yeah, so Schwartz is young, but he's also quick. So in 3 wide receiver sets, who do you think is going to be playing? It's going to be Cooper Bell, DPJ, or do you think it's going to be Cooper Bell, Schwartz? Schwartz just open up the field.
It all depends on how fast David Bell gets up to speed, but he strikes me as the type of prospect that's probably ready to assume a role early on. Now they're going to probably use both of their tight ends a little bit more, so you might see 2 receiver sets a little bit more often. They use the franchise tag on Njoku. Harrison Bryant is in that ready to take the leap type of year. So, and obviously they use 2 running backs on the field at the same time. So we may not see a lot of 3 sets, but it's going to be Cooper. It'll probably be Donovan Peoples-Jones in early training camp, but Bell strikes me as a guy that could probably push him out of the way in 2 receiver sets.
The last player, he's not quite Mr. Relevant because we're still only in round 3, but Danny Gray.
Oh, I like Danny Gray was one of my favorite sleepers in this draft.
Yeah, talk to the people with Danny Gray, because I'll be honest with you, we've mentioned him on the show, but we really haven't talked about Danny Gray. So, wide receiver at SMU, went to San Francisco. He's a little older. He's already 23, 6 foot, 186. Why did you like him as a sleeper before the draft, and do you still like him going to San Fran?
Yeah, I mean, I like the spot. What you're doing here is when you're taking, I thought Danny Gray would go around like 5 or 6, but round 3, great. It doesn't really change my perspective on him, other than a team saw what I saw. He was one of the fastest guys in the draft. Pretty solid hands. I mean, this is what you think about. You should think about, if you draft him, you're drafting Darnell. You're drafting a cheaper version of Darnell Mooney than you would get in your draft. So Darnell Mooney showed a little something towards the end of the year when they threw him the football, assumed a better role in year 2, and now year 3. Right, we're excited to draft Darnell Mooney in round 6 of our single QB best ball draft. So I think that you think about, like, this guy has got the upside of Darnell Mooney. He's got the speed. A coach saw what a lot of people saw in Darnell Mooney, and now he's on a team where Deebo Samuel is not known for his deep speed. He's more of a move around the formation. You have George Kittle, who owns the middle of the field and the seam. There is a role for Danny Gray if he can prove worthy in training camp. He'll probably be situational. You probably can bank on maybe 3 targets a game, but those are deep shots that are going to be necessary, and you can hit on him. He's a very good pick. I would take Danny Gray over Antonio Brown in my best ball drafts at this point.
I think that's a fair thing. I mean, over and above, we know that Trey Lance can chuck the rock in the event that he actually starts. Danny Gray, he ran a 4.33 40-yard dash for his size. He's 6 foot, 186.
Yeah.
That is a speed score of 104.4, which is a 92nd percentile speed score. So
every team needs a Danny Gray. You need someone everyone goofs on Marquez Valdes-Scantling. You need a guy like that can take the lid off the defense, push everyone back. That's why I think the Ravens are in trouble losing Hollywood. But back to Danny Gray, he is probably going to be a better NFL player than a fantasy player. But again, you talk about these guys that can hit on any given week in best ball in the late rounds. This is one that's actually viable.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay. I think we've said it all we need to say about the wide receivers. Some good landing spots, some probably better NFL landing spots than real fantasy football landing spots. Let's talk about the running backs. All right. So we've already talked about Breece Hall. We've already talked about Kenneth Walker. Let's move on. The only other running back drafted in round 2 was James Cook, Georgia running back, going to the Buffalo Bills at 2.31. I love this pick, man. I think it's absolutely perfect. I comped James Cook to Michael Carter. Him and Zamir were like the Kenneth Walker, Javonte Williams mold for me. And he's going to be very productive, man. So what do you think about that landing spot?
Well, I like the landing spot. We saw what the Bills try to do. They try to get J.D. McKissick, right? They wanted a pass catching running back there because they plan on using someone in the backfield that can catch short passes. They probably don't want Josh Allen tucking and running as much anymore, is my assumption, right? Mm-hmm. So Devin Singletary proved worthy in down the stretch. We'll see if he could sustain it for a full year, but I do like what I saw from him down the stretch. They're gonna, in any given week, you know what? James White. I would compare him to James White. Yes. Yeah, right. That would be his comp. So James White was RB12 a couple of years, right? Danny Woodhead. That's what you could expect. Chris Thompson. Right, those type of guys where in PPR leagues can have RB1 seasons, but I would say that James Cook, James Cook, not James White. James Cook is probably right now. I think I ranked him RB28 in Dynasty, and so I'm willing to move him up. Because again, he could strike. We might not even know that he has a skill set where they could use him on every down. I'd have to look in a little bit more on his pass blocking because that'll really determine if he gets on the field early or not. But you got to love this, and specifically because the Bills were seeking out a pass catching running back, they found him. He's got to be your RB. Let's see, in this class right now, is he RB3? Who would be three?
RB4 for me. I have Rashad White ahead of him still.
Okay, so fine, but you wouldn't argue with anyone that told you, "Hey, I have," right? No. Because Leonard Fournette is certainly more of an obstacle than Singletary.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that Leonard Fournette, though, chances are, I mean, is this contract just 1 year? I'm actually not even sure.
It's I believe it's 2 years.
Okay. So I mean that makes you question a little bit. I mean, Keyshawn Von Truthers, I was one of them. That's done. It's dead. James Cook, though, look. I think probably right around he's going to be a mid to late RB2 for me. That's how I view James Cook. I think it's such a great landing spot for him.
In redraft leagues, where will he go?
Round 6 probably.
Okay,
I think he's going to go up. He's going to go around 6.
Okay, how about this? Would you take him or Chase Edmonds for redraft this year?
Well, here's the thing about Chase Edmonds. He's going like around 8, 9, 10. So
that's
Chase Edmonds is going later.
Well, but that's my point.
So your question is, so you're saying basically fade Cook and take Chase Edmonds I would probably take Chase Edmonds a few rounds later. That's because I'm cheap. But all things being equal, if they have the exact same draft capital, I'm probably taking James Cook just because of the talent.
I'm just saying, I'm just talking about this year's situation. If they end up going in a similar spot, wouldn't you aren't you more confident that Chase Edmonds is going to produce this year than James Cook?
Probably,
but it's close for you.
It's close. That is a great line of demarcation right there. Like to me, it's like that's the conversation around the talent. And here's the thing: Chase Edmonds is going late, but I think that the market is sleeping on Chase Edmonds. So I think
he's moved up a little bit though. He's moved up a drop. Yeah.
Okay. I just remember I think I got him in like round 9 in one of my recent drafts in the last couple of weeks. So. But I think I got value there because I had pretty much no Chase Edmonds because that's typically where I'm going quarterback in those rounds. But all right, so right after James Cook in round 3, we also had 3 running backs drafted. Rashad White to Tampa Bay Buccaneers, love it. Rashad White, best comparable to David Johnson. He's a taller running back, but he knows how to catch the damn ball. Allen, 43 receptions last year. 43, that's insane. I love it. And then after that. Okay. Tyrion Davis-Price going to San Francisco 49ers.
That was the shocker, prospect.
Right? That was a shocker. Here's the thing. I was listening to the live broadcast, and it was Pat Kerwin who was talking about it. And he talked about how he actually had offers to go to Georgia and Alabama, but he chose to stay at LSU because he was from Baton Rouge. He was from the area. Then you look at his production. It's decent. Let me pull it up here.
He's big too. He's like 6 foot, 215, right? I mean,
yes, he checks the boxes.
Yeah, I mean that's even Alvin Kamara is 5'11", 215. So you want your back a little more stout. It seems like he's a little bit more slender, but
well, he's 6 foot, 219. He weighed in he weighed in at the combine, I believe, and then he also weighed in at his pro day.
That's what I'm saying. That's
219.
lean.
Yeah.
That's tall and lean. And the landing spot is the interesting part. So what does this really do? Like let's look at the fantasy football fallout. He's got better draft capital than Elijah Mitchell. Okay.
Yes.
So Elijah Mitchell, who was going in the 4th and 5th round, you now have to like understand that if you take him there, and it's okay to take him there, but there's real risk because what happens when Mitchell, it looks like he can't stay healthy for a full season. If he misses a couple of games and Price shows out, now you're in a full-blown committee by week 3, by week 4. So what do you do with Price, right? With it's TDP, right? What do you do with TDP? He is a running back that I'm going to want in the 9th and 10th round of redraft leagues. Certainly I'm going to want him in the 2nd round, just based on Elijah Mitchell from last year,
100%.
that if he gets the opportunity, he can roll with it. And we already saw that they don't care about, 3rd round. It might as well be 2nd round to them because they treated Elijah Mitchell as a 6th rounder, like a 3rd rounder, right? They just,
absolutely.
So I'm interested because of this coach's ability to scout running backs and their ability and their willingness to put them in. Now, Trey Sermon was a 3rd round running back, and it didn't go well. So I'm going to be okay with Tyrion Davis-Price as long as he's like a mid-2nd round rookie pick or an 10th round redraft pick. If the price goes up, I'm going to let somebody else take it.
Yeah. So, do you listen to JJ Zacharyason's podcast?
Not consistently, but I heard JJ on other podcasts.
Okay. So one of the things he always would talk about is the ambiguous backfields. And most so ambiguous backfields and where the running back is being drafted in rounds, I think it's like 3, 4, 5 or later, right? So that dead zone, I'm absolutely taking. I'm going to start hammering Price. Now, here's the thing: I wonder how high his price is going to get. Round 9, round 10, absolutely. Right. What if he goes up to like round 7 because it's the San Francisco running back? He's got better draft capital than Elijah Mitchell. Elijah Mitchell can't stay healthy. All the things you just talked about. What if he's around 7? It's a pass,
that's
right?
probably not going to do it because I don't think that, and I like that theory about ambiguous backfields. Like an ambiguous backfield to me is probably like the Miami one, right? Which is probably depressing the value of Chase Edmonds because it's a new coach and there's all new players there. The San Francisco running back is volatile, but it's not ambiguous. Elijah Mitchell showed that he can handle the workload. There's no doubt he is going to get the first crack to stay the workhorse. Now, injuries, if it wasn't for injuries, that he would probably be a 2nd round pick. So he is priced at, it's already counted in his round 4, round 5, round 6 ADP of his injury discount. So Price is an interesting player in the double-digit rounds. If he starts getting pushed up, I'm just going to let somebody else take him. They could be right, but I'll stay with Elijah Mitchell because, like you said, with Amon-Ra St. Brown, sure, he was drafted in the 4th round, but he's going to be viewed as a 2nd rounder now in, draft capital language. Yep. I think that holds true for Elijah Mitchell too. It's the same system, same coaches, same team, same setup. This is probably more of a Trey Sermon replacement than it is an Elijah Mitchell replacement.
I agree. I think that's a sharp take. Moving on to the last running back drafted in round 3 at 3.34 to the Washington Commanders, Alabama's Brian Robinson. Okay, Brian Robinson. First of all, were you comfortable taking Brian Robinson in rookie drafts?
It's going to be. I hate to say it's going to be the 2nd round. Yeah, 2nd round. It's 2-6 ish. I know it's like right in the middle.
Yeah.
Let's see where Damian Pierce. Like if Damian Pierce, I keep saying Tennessee. Like whoever the Tennessee backup is, I want that guy. So if it's Pierce, if it's if it's Hassan Haskins in round 6. I might be interested in him above some of those other more talented running backs. Right now, middle of 2nd round, right where like you're going to find right after the round 1 draft capital wide receivers. Certainly, I'm going to want them first. But once we start getting into the backup running back world, he'll be at the top of the heap for me. I'd probably take him ahead of Price.
I know. I think that's smart. What does this do to Antonio Gibson? Where do you have Antonio Gibson ranked now?
Yeah, I moved Gibson down significantly. And for good reason. I have him right now. I have him at RB 16. I had him at 11 before. Now you say, that's only 5 spots. But when you're talking about the top 20, any move down is significant. 16 it might even be generous. He probably belongs at 20. Like in redraft leagues, I'd rather have Zeke. We've talked about this one a million times.
It all comes home to roost, Al.
Do you agree though? Zeke versus Gibson?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do, man. Like,
Yep.
Antonio Gibson was going right around that 2-3 turn, right? He was sometimes falling a little bit to like the middle of the third, but generally speaking, right around the 2-3 turn. I can't do it anymore, man. Brian Robinson is a good running back. He's a good backup running back, but he's a good running back. So that worries me a little bit. Players that haven't been drafted yet that I still like, highest ranked on my board, Samir White, Isaiah Spiller, Damian Pierce. Those are probably the top 3 guys. Next tier down, Pierce, Strong, Jerome Ford, Tyler Algier. Then after that, you talked about Hassan Haskins, Kevin Harris. So there's still some good running backs on the board that's going to move around. But, man, Isaiah Spiller, again, talk about a fall from grace. It's too bad, man, for this guy. Too bad. That's it. Where are you taking Isaiah Spiller? Assuming he goes around 4 or 5, where are you taking Spiller? Round 3 at best?
So I'll come back to what I've been saying. If Spiller is the guy backing up Derrick Henry, I'm probably going to even take him right in that ahead of Rashad White. Derrick Henry is 29 years old and started, what was your first car that you owned, Shane? I'm going to make a little comparison here. First car.
that I drove or that I owned?
Well, your first piece of shit car, basically.
Okay, so when I was 16, I had a Geo Metro, a bright green Geo Metro.
Beautiful.
My brother and I, so for those of you who don't know what it is, think of like a Volkswagen punch buggy.
Oh, no, people know what a Geo Metro is.
Yeah. Okay, and it was bright green, okay? So then when I was in
university. What year was
it?
What year? No, I mean like the car.
95 probably.
The car was in 95. Okay.
Something like that. Yeah, 95, 96. And then when I was in university, I bought a 92 Ford Ranger because I was managing a little painting company. And so I needed a truck and it was a piece of shit. And then the transmission ended up dying on me and I shipped it off. But why do you ask, Al?
Okay, so I asked. So my first piece of crap car was a 1980 two-tone Ford Fairmount, it's called. I had to stick a pencil in the carburetor to get it to work. No joke, right? So here's the comparison. That car gets you where you got to go. It's a beautiful thing. And then one day a little smoke starts coming out of the hood, right? And you're like, ignore, maybe, it's fine. Not worth fixing. And then what happens is, a month later, that thing is just overheating every time. It's stalling out. Remember when cars used to stall out? That doesn't happen anymore. But little by little, once it starts going, there's a problem there. That's the Finn spoiler. That's funny. So basically, Derrick Henry is an elite running back. He's going to be for probably another year or two, but there's now smoke coming out from the hood, just like your first Geo Prism, whatever the hell that car was. Metro, right? Yeah. So I want to have the brand new car, even if it's not a Lamborghini, just a solid Nissan, a solid car behind it. And if that is Isaiah Spiller, I'm there for it. His draft stock is going to be low, but I can see that the end is nigh for Derrick Henry. And where you're going to have to take Spiller at the middle or the end of the second round, he'll go after Brian Robinson. He'll go after all those guys. I think that's the one. So you asked about Spiller specifically. If he lands up on Derrick Henry, I'm going to still have him as the 4 or 5. I would even consider taking him ahead of James Cook, even though that I probably won't have to take him there.
Yeah. If we did show titles, this would be Isaiah Spiller, Toyota Corolla. That's what it would be.
Exactly. But even better than that, he's a brand new car. He's got low mileage. You get to reset the clock.
And there's still new Toyota Corollas. They're still making that vehicle. It's all reliable, baby. Al, we're going on an hour and 3 minutes, so I know that we're going long. So we're going to finish up here. I just want to get your gut on the quarterbacks because we got to talk about the quarterbacks very, very quickly. Okay. So Kenny Pickett, we already talked about it. Went to Pittsburgh Steelers. Desmond Ridder, Atlanta Falcons in round 3 as a second quarterback drafted off the board. Legit chance he could start this year, if not this year, next. Okay. Malik Willis, same deal. 3-2-2 going to Tennessee Titans. He's going to be backing up Ryan Tannehill. Probably won't start this year, but next year the Titans have an out of Ryan Tannehill's contract. That could be the opportunity for Malik. Now, this is a guy that I was high on pre-draft. As the draft process kept going on, people kept bringing this guy down more and more and more. And I feel like we've kind of come full circle on Matt Corral going to the Carolina Panthers. What do you think? Do you think that he's got a legit chance to start? I like Matt Corral.
Yeah. All 3 of these guys fall into the same category. I mean, since they were all taken in round 3, it doesn't matter if they were taken in round 3 or round 2 at this point. Okay. So everybody, for them, the expectations are now lower. Here's what my prediction is. It's going to be. I'll take them each quickly. Malik Willis is going to be integrated into the offense the first day. He's going to have that Trey Lance treatment where he comes in for a play. Ryan Tannehill has to realize if there's 35, 40 offensive snaps a game, he might be taking 30 of them or 28 of them. There's going to be plays in the beginning. Now, if Malik Willis plays well on those plays, now there's going to be more of those plays. And even you normally it's like, hey, when things go bad, if the Titans start 1-3, it doesn't even have to happen that way. The Titans are 3-2. The Titans are 4-1, but Tannehill is not playing well, and Willis is playing well. You're going to see the switch.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think you're not wrong in there. I think Tannehill still gets a bad rap. He's a good quarterback, but
he didn't play well last year.
Yeah, he played okay.
Okay.
He wasn't the worst. He was okay. He was fine.
He didn't play good enough to keep his job. Like they weren't taken seriously as a 1 seed because of Tannehill.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. It could happen this year. And for those of you like myself who took Tannehill as your QB3 because he was, quote, safe, that was a mistake. Last thing, we talked about the quarterbacks. We talked about the wide receivers. We talked about the running backs. Very quickly, tight ends. Trey McBride, my top-ranked tight end. He went to the Arizona Cardinals round 2. I kind of like that. It's not going to be relevant this year, but Zach Ertz is getting up there in age. In a year or two, Trey McBride, I think of him as like an Adam Troutman type prospect, right? He does a lot of things well. Can he catch the ball? We think he can. The one that I really like, that I'm probably, if I'm in a tight end premium league and it's round 4 and I decide for whatever reason not to go up for running back, say I have multiple round 4 picks, I'm going to take a shot on Virginia tight end Jelani Woods, drafted to the Colts. There's not a lot of competition, and he's an ultra athletic player. This is somebody that Mike was super high on in the pre-draft process. So very quickly, what are your thoughts on Jelani Woods? Or frankly, Greg Dulcich going to Denver or Jeremy Rucker going to the New York Jets?
I'll cover them all in one sentence. This is how you do it. We play in very deep leagues with deep taxis and all that kind of stuff. So this doesn't really apply there. Of course, yeah, you're going to take shots on these guys in late round 3, early round 4, and you're going to put them on, stash everybody, right? Stash every single player in the entire player pool. But if you're in a dynasty league, which I found out a lot of people do play in these leagues where it's 20, 25 deep and you have to cut down to 15 and then you can build back up. Don't draft these guys, because what's going to happen is we know the tight ends don't produce in year 1. And that also applies to a lot of these wide receivers. Like even someone, that the round 3 wide receivers, don't draft them because someone else is going to clog their roster with them, and then they're going to have to drop them. And that's when you can pick them up or get them as throw-ins by week 7 later in the year. So if there's a player you like that hasn't produced. Now, if you're playing in a lot of these 30 deep and with 10 taxi squads like we are, sure, you're going to want to take your shots right here, pick your spots. You named all of the guys that have theoretical upside. The one thing I would disagree on is that the Colts tight end room is a little crowded with Mo Alley Cox and Granson. But like I said, if Woods is such an imposing character that he could easily ascend to being a good red zone threat. So yeah, pick your poison. I don't think I wouldn't have any of them ranked over the other besides McBride. But let someone else draft them and pick them up when they're dropped or get them as throw-ins later on. Like right now, Granson, Noah, what was the guy's name on that Kansas City drafted? Noah Gray. You can get all those guys, if you want to give your late 3rd rounder for any of those guys, you can get them. Last year, you wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I mean, the reason I like Jelani Woods is because he's athletic, and more so than any other position, athleticism matters at tight end position. Agreed. So, I think that's a good little fit. So that's it. We've talked about pretty much everything else. One last thing that I'm just going to say for the people, a few players that I think are worth watching out for. Obviously, at the quarterback position, you're going to be wanting to see where Sam Howell goes and perhaps Carson Strong. But for me, it's Sam Howell. He's really that last guy that I care about.
Giants.
I think that'd be a great fit. That'd be a great fit for the Giants. At the wide receiver position, really, most of the talent's taken, but Calvin Austin, Bo Melton, and Khalil Shakir. And then, of course, Mike's boy, Justin Ross. I think Justin Ross goes round 4.
I don't think he gets drafted.
Really? Okay.
Or maybe like 6th or 7th round. No, you're right. He'll get drafted.
I think round 4. He did enough in his rookie year pre-injuries that I think
That's fair.
I think he'll get drafted maybe round 4, round 5. But other than that, there's pretty much nobody left.
That's a good call, though. He'd be him and Shakir would be the 2 most interesting guys. So you're right. I retract that I said he wouldn't get drafted. I think you're right about that.
There you go. And then finally at the running back position, I like Zamir White, Isaiah Spiller, Damian Pierce, Pierre Strong, Jerome Ford, Tyler Algier, and Kevin Harris as my top. Even Tyler Goodson, I can throw in that. So a lot of good running backs still left to be drafted.
Whoever the Saints draft for running back, I'm interested in that guy.
There you go. There you go. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you were listening to, please like and subscribe. Alan Seslowsky of Rotowire. How do the good people find your content?
Yeah, just go to @Alan Seslowsky on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, whatever you like. Or if you do a simple Google search, Alan Seslowsky Rotowire, all of my articles are in one link, and that link is also in my Twitter. You can get all my written content, all of my videos. But on Twitter, best place is the best baseline place to save me. I link to everything else from there. Also, Rotowire YouTube page, putting up free videos every single day. A lot of useful 3-minute videos, some good takes, some hot takes, some bad takes, but always hopefully entertaining. At Rotowire on YouTube. Go subscribe over there. Free as usual.
There you go. So, Alan, there's a lot of content out there. Okay. Rotowire has great articles, great rankings, all that stuff. What differentiates Alan Seslowsky from every other fantasy football analyst in the space? Alan does the best videos in the space. Bar none, hands down. So,
thanks, brother.
For those of you who like to have their data tracked by the Chinese government, go sign in on TikTok and go follow Alan Seslowsky on TikTok. You will not be disappointed. So, Alan, thank you so much for jumping on today. It's always so much fun. And look, this is our Christmas morning. You were saying on your podcast that your wife had asked you, why do people care about the draft? This is better than the Oscars, Al.
Right. Well, I was trying to give her a comparison that she would understand.
This is like if the Oscars were on Christmas morning. That's what the draft is for fantasy football.
Well, she just said, like, why don't we just get a list of the players? Then you could see where they went. Like, what's all the stuff for? And I said, why wouldn't you do the same for the Oscars or the Academy Awards or the you want to see, they have human interest stories. They have, you get to see the reveal. It's a whole thing. And, and also that there's second with the Oscars, that's just, you find out the reveal. With football, there's second and third order effects that we care about as content creators.
Exactly. And so, look, there's still a bunch of football players to be drafted. So hopefully you guys tune in. I think it's starting pretty much 12 Eastern. So it's going to be starting pretty sharp, pretty quickly here. So thank you so much for jumping on. Alan, you can follow him on Twitter at Alan Seslowsky. You can follow me on Twitter at the Flex Network 1. For Al, I'm Flex Shane, and we are the Flex Network.
This is the Flex Network. This is the Flex Network. Flex on them. Flex on everybody.